On Sunday, I did a message on Romans 8, verse 28 through to 30, which seemed to be pretty powerful and seemed to have quite a big impact. And so I thought, actually, why not use these verses for our memory verse this week, to allow these truths to go deeper into our hearts, intentionally thinking upon them, meditating upon them, bringing them to mind, because they're really deep, powerful truths that really have the power to shape how we live and how we view our lives day to day. And so we're going to be reading Romans 8, verse 28 through to 30, which says, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. For those God foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brothers and sisters. And those he predestined, he also called. Those he called, he also justified. And those he justified, he also glorified." And so there's a number of things in there. You can listen to the full talk that I did on these verses. It's posted, the link is posted below this video in the description box. So if you want to hear more on this subject, do listen to that. But very quickly, this verse that God works all things for good is a famous verse, well-known verse. But often we don't always read on, do we? Because the rest of the passage explains how God is working for our good, and we see that it is for those who love him. It's not for everyone. It's for those who love him. So do we love him? The promise is, if we love him, he can work all things for our God, even the most difficult, hard things, and who have been called according to his purpose. His purpose, not our purpose, not our agenda, not our plan for our life, but his purpose, which is what he goes on to explain. He says, for those who God foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son. So there's a sense that God foreknew us. That's a staggering word there when we think about it. That God, before we were born, before we even came to Christ, before we were even in our mother's womb, God foreknew us. He knew us before the world even began. Ephesians tells us, before the foundation of the world, he chose us. And so God foreknew us. And this is a powerful truth that when we get our head around, makes us realize how important God thinks we are. Much like a mother and father that think about having a child, and they have a child, and when they're pregnant, they're thinking of this child, and they're thinking of how they will love them. Whatever happens, whatever might happen, whatever comes out, they're going to love that child. And that's how God thinks of us. He foreknew us like a parent preparing for the birth of a baby. He loves us in that way. He foreknew us and predestined us to be conformed to the image of his Son. So that word predestined is about God has set us a destiny. God's given us a purpose that we often miss, and it's to be conformed into the likeness of Jesus, to become like him. That's the great overarching purpose for every one of us. If you're a follower of Jesus, it means you're a disciple. It means you're working to become like him, an apprentice of Christ. That means you need to become a disciple. Means we follow a pattern and we're becoming like somebody. And that's God's overarching purpose. We often like to think about where we're going to live, who we're going to marry, what jobs are we going to do, and all of those things are important. But overarching, over all of those things, wherever we live, whatever we do, whoever we marry or don't marry, God wants us to become more like Jesus. That's his real purpose. That's our destiny. He's predestined us to make us like his Son. And it goes on to say, and those he's predestined, he's also called. So he's called you. There's a moment in all of our lives when we choose to follow Jesus that we sense his call. And it's this kind of irresistible call to come and follow, to come and become, to come and follow the pattern of Christ, and to live a life that seeks to know him and love him. And it says, those who called, he also justified. Justified is a legal term. It's about being declared not guilty in court. And so Jesus the Father has declared us not guilty, like a judge in court, because Jesus has paid our penalty, has paid our price. I mean, this is the greatest news. This is the best news of the gospel. Yeah. Under the Old Testament law, I was guilty. You were guilty. Under God's perfect law, none of us could stand up. We were all guilty. We were all condemned. We were all declared unrighteous, not worthy. But Jesus stepped in and paid our penalty. And so God declares us now not guilty. You're justified. Righteousness through faith in Jesus Christ. This is amazing news. And it says, those he justified, he also glorified. And what's interesting here is that it's a past tense. I mean, we think, well, surely it must mean we're going to be glorified. And there's a sense we will be glorified. But Paul here, the Apostle Paul, he's so certain that this kind of chain of events that he outlines in this passage are going to take place. It's as good as done. It's done and dusted in his eyes. And it's done and dusted in God's eyes. You know, this sequence of events has been referred to as the golden chain of salvation. It's been come to known as that. And it means that God secures every link. You know, it's him that foreknew us. It's him that predestined us. It's him that called us. It's him that justifies. It's him that glorified. You know, God is the one securing every link in that chain. And so we can have confidence that actually our salvation is secure, and it should change our whole perspective on life, that we can live believing that these things are true, and that nothing actually can separate us from the love of God. And so I just want to encourage you, take some time to memorize these verses and meditate upon them. Think about each one of those words and the impact that it could and should have on our lives, and we'll see you again soon.